process.
Trust the process. So beat up. So beat up. I'm not sure how I like my new mic placement. I'm now have John set up where I have my mic coming over my left shoulder and my alternative screen is up to my right.
Where am I?
You're right there in Colorado.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna listen to this. There's a new Eminem album. Wow, I'll check that out later.
It's called Peanut Eminem.
Nope.
Can't wait till he gets into the dad joke phase of rap.
I really feel like this needs to be right about here.
All right, why am I not seeing the friggin'... There we go. Hey, I can retweet that. It's a picture of Thomas.
Did you tweet?
Yes, I did that like 5 minutes ago.
Twitter.com. Okay.
But if anyone asks, you tweeted it.
I got it.
That's a picture of Thomas. That's awesome. Sweet.
What's a picture of me?
In the tweet.
Oh God.
Will you stop chewing on ice? Oh my goodness.
My throat hurts. You're right. That was very rude of me. Sorry.
Your throat hurts and I got to hang out with you tomorrow? Oh,
I know.
Man.
I've just been talking too much. All right. Whenever you guys are ready, let me know.
I'm ready. Do the open.
All right.
Hello and welcome to... That was horrible, but I was trying to make you laugh. Welcome to
it's episode 119 of PHP Ugly.
PHP Ugly. I'm your
host.
No, I am
Eric Van Johnson.
And I'm John Condon.
Quietly there you go. I like that. Sitting quietly in the background, questioning his life decisions. Is Thomas right now?
Tom, you seem very depressed right now. What's going on?
I love when you guys talk over each other. It makes it so easy to sync. It's the audio the last couple weeks has been amazingly bad.
Yeah, some of the joys of editing a podcast.
Yeah, I'm sick too.
A service.
Service was horrible. You're not feeling well, Thomas? What's wrong?
I got that sore throat, sinusy type awfulness that I believe my children brought home from school. So you know what I had to do.
That's right. School's back in session.
You know what I had to do as a sick person?
Yell that?
I had to go to the DMV
and get everybody else sick.
Yes.
What a nice guy.
It didn't occur to me until I was sitting there coughing, surrounded by like 100 other people.
I have a funny story to tell. Speaking of DMV, my wife, for whatever reason, got in her head that she wanted one of these scooters. It's like a
Vespa. Like a Vespa, right?
Like a Vespa. Yeah. Exactly like a Vespa. It's not a Vespa, but it's that style where you put your feet up and you scooter around.
Date guys.
And she goes, she sees this person down in Pacific Beach selling one for like, a few $100. I'm like, all right. All right, no, I'm not like, all right. I'm sorry. Let me pause that for a moment. She comes to me. She goes, hey, I really want to go get the scooter. I'm like, what, really? A scooter? Because my wife yeah, I love her to death, but her sense of balance is questionable, and she's always been very nervous. When we were younger and we lived on the beach, we lived down in Ocean Beach, we'd ride bikes around, and she was always very sketchy about riding on the street because you're very exposed on a bicycle or motorcycle or anything when you're riding on the street,
especially when you're naked.
Exactly. So when she told me this, I was surprised. I'm like, wow, okay, well, we're going down to pick it up, and we're discovering more and more things. Like, for example, in California, now of course this changes from state to state, but that's basically considered a motorcycle. Not basically, it's considered a motorcycle. And she has to get a motorcycle license to ride it. Now, as a motorcycle rider myself, I'm like, are you kidding me? I could have gotten my motorcycle license on one of these things. I mean, this is like a glorified bicycle. Why did I take my motorcycle test on an actual motorcycle? I don't understand why anybody does that. Because it's considered an M1 motorcycle license, which is like a motorcycle, a full-fledged motorcycle license. So I informed the wife of this, and she's all, yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll get a motorcycle license. We end up purchasing this thing. Now we have to get it registered. And of course, none of this is simple here in California. It's such a pain to do anything out here. But my wife is trying to register it, and they're like insistent on wanting to see the bike. And I'm like, all right, well, that's problematic because I'm the only one that can ride it. And I look like a complete clown on this little
Just picture you riding that thing.
How is this problematic?
So now I gotta drive this scooter. Good.
One, that would be absolutely stupid if you didn't have a motorcycle license. How are you supposed to get it from point A to point B without a motorcycle license?
Yeah, I guess the expectation is you throw it on the back of a truck or something. So that's my goal. Like this, actually tomorrow, at some point between having to take care of going down to our conference hotel and having meetings about audio, video, and food and all that, and going to a client's baseball game in the afternoon, sometime between those two periods, I have to come back to the house, jump on this little scooter, drive it across town, which is about 10 miles, down the main drag of our little city. My 6'5", 350-pound ass.
Okay, so I wasn't going to bring that up, but have you tested that it can actually move you yet?
Yeah. I will say,
because that'd be like you jumping on a regular lawnmower and then just yelling "Yeah!"
I really want my kids to like film me doing this because it's going to be.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will without you asking. If you say loud enough in your house, all right, I'm hopping on the Vespa and taking it to the DMV, then there will be cameras showing up.
Do you have an appointment at the DMV? Because the last time I was there for hours.
Right. So this is one of the problems. If it was the DMV, it would actually be a lot closer to my house. But, and I don't know if you know this or if you're even a member, but we're members of AAA, and you can do a lot of the DMV activities, including registering a vehicle at AAA. Mm-hmm. But AAA is 3 times as far as the DMV. But like you said, it's so much quicker because you try to do anything at the DMV here in California, and it's literally your entire day. There's no way around it. It's 3-4 hours. whether you have an appointment. If you don't have an appointment, it's like 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's a horrible process. So we
I
go
love,
to
I love the fact that the one there in Poway in your town has 2 different lines. And if you don't happen to catch the person at the door that directs you and you get in the wrong line, you're screwed.
you're standing outside. You're like
You're spending 20 minutes in line for them to tell you, oh, you need to go to the end of this other line.
Yep.
See, at the
You gotta be
DMV that I
kidding
just went to, they had a ticketing system where there's 5 different types of tickets depending on why you were there.
Mhm.
And I was in and out within an hour today.
Yeah, I've never.
Ours has that same thing. It's got different letters based on what you want or there for, but it doesn't matter. It's still a slow
Yeah.
process.
Hmm.
Anyway, enough with DMV. That has nothing to do with PHP.
And what I was going to say is writing this thing is a ton of fun. Like, I wish I had known about this when I did live at the beach, because I would have bought like 4 of these things. I let my daughter, the future mayor of Poway, take it for a spin because they're so simple to write. I don't even know how they work. Like, as a motorcycle rider, again, you have your gears, you shift gears, and you do all that. These things have like an automatic transmission. So if it's not moving, it's in neutral. If you hit the gas, it like goes into first gear and just takes off. I mean, it's the weirdest thing.
How fast does this thing go? Like,
So
can you
this
take
one-
it on the highway?
This one is highway legal. Yeah, it goes up to like 65, I think, 65 or 70. Not with me on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could see
'Cause I
I could see
had-
Emily doing that, but I don't think I could see you doing that.
I had that thing floored. I was topping out at about 47.
So you're not taking it on the highway.
No, I'm not riding this thing again after I get it registered. Like, when I get home, I'm not riding it. It's not mine. I didn't want it. I have my motorcycle. But it's fun. It is fun to tool around in. I wish I had one when I lived at the beach.
You know what's insane here is that in Colorado there's no helmet law.
Yeah, that is insane. I
Florida
don't
was the same
understand
way.
It's
Those Arizona. There's a
Weird.
lot of states. And explain to me the logic where every state in the U.S. has a sweeping federal law that you cannot be in a contained vehicle with a crash cage around you, with all the safety stuff, with airbags. You cannot be in that vehicle without a seatbelt on. But hey, straddle a motorcycle, fly down the highway with no helmet on. That's perfectly fine. We don't see any reason to create a federal law for everybody to have to wear helmets for that and impede your right as an American to feel the wind in your hair. I don't understand that. It's
What
one
hair?
of the most cringy things as a motorcycle rider. I don't even know why somebody who rides a motorcycle would choose to do that. I ride on the freeway. People look at me, and here in California, people look at me strange because I will jump on the motorcycle without my safety jacket on, because it's
that's
like
not why
110
they're
degrees.
looking at you.
So I'll just put on a helmet, jeans, sneakers, and a t-shirt, and I get strange looks, and deservedly so. But I don't. There's no way I would ever do it without a helmet.
Yeah, I have a tendency to yell at people on motorcycles that are riding without a helmet here, just because it's a weird sensation as a father to see a younger man riding one of those crotch rocket style motorcycles without a helmet, where I have to open my window to my minivan and yell at him.
I
would
bet
your
that goes
mother-
real well.
What would your mother say?
What would your mother say? How old are you? What would your mother say if she saw you right now?
I just came back from a high school football game. I feel 1,000 years old. I honestly do. It's having teenagers in all 3 of them in high school now is just weird. It's so bizarre, and yeah, it's nice that you get to spend time with other parents and you just sort of go, yep. And they go, yeah, I know, right? And that's the conversation you have repeatedly. But yeah,
So
no, I'm
I had a fun
37.
day. I had a fun day today. I had to start to explain some programming patterns and workflows and theories to a room of non-programmers. And what was weird is I shouldn't be surprised, but they seem to understand it. They seem to embrace it, and they seem to like appreciate it. It was like saying, and it was a very targeted crowd. It was a CFO of one of our clients. It was a CFO, essentially his accounting department. The CEO was there, and we were talking about, because we're building a greenfield application for them, and we were talking about event-driven architecture and some of the concepts around it, because we're looking to use those patterns.
Are you talking about event sourcing?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
This is on the Trello board for me because I ran into it through Slack a bunch over the last week, and I'm not sure if I'm like missing something and just not understanding.
It's huge. And did you see the video I posted in Slack?
Yeah.
Or watch it? It's huge in the accounting industry, and I love that guy's way he delivered it. As far as like the accounting industry can teach us all a ton, and when it comes to event sourcing, which I'll let Eric get back to in a second, it's just a way of capturing all of your data without losing any of it, and then being able to get back to any state in time, and you can run reports. You can start asking questions that you can't ask if you do things the way we do it now. And his simple example is, I put 3 items into my cart and I remove one. Well, the way we do it now is we say, okay, your cart has 2 items. But, 6 months down the road, you can't say, well, how many people removed something from their cart and then later bought that same item?
Okay, so I guess that's what I'm missing, is that this whole thing is, it's about reconstructing complete chains. Like you store every event, you store every.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so accountants use it because, and John, if you can find that video and add it to.
I got it. So the speaker is Greg Young, and the video is Design Patterns, Why Event Sourcing, and it was a presentation that he gave at the Dutch PHP conference in 2016.
I really wish I had seen this video before, because I've been looking into this for a while. I've been trying to get the team up to speed on it. And again, I gotta stop saying and again. I listen to our podcast and I notice how much I say that. But I've been bringing myself up to speed and getting my head around it. And so I understand the challenge, and then I'm trying to get our team members up to it. I wish I had known about this video, because this video hands down explains it better to me, at least for me to consume, than any other presentation I've seen. And I've seen some pretty good presentations on it at a couple conferences. So had I seen this, I would have reached out to this individual and see if they would be interested in presenting at Wave PHP, because I really like the way he approached this. But yeah, exactly what John said. I mean, we're looking to use it in a couple places. I can give you another example of where we're looking to use it, but the kind of way that people always pattern it after are accountants, because accountants kind of have this concept in their industry with ledgers.
Right.
And basically, like he said, writing a ledger in pen, and a ledger is always moving forward. A ledger, so you can essentially go through your ledger and reconstruct everything financially, everything in your business, which is why this was relevant to the stuff we were working on, and why the CFO was able to embrace it. Because he's like, yeah, I understand exactly what you're talking about. We do this, this makes a lot of sense. And
right,
so
but
it was good.
The piece that's missing there makes perfect sense for accounting. But how do you, when it comes to things like in the project I work on, it's a lot of contact information.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I could envision this working is I changed contact ID number 7's first name from JHN because if they missed the O to JOHN. So you're adding a new event, change name. The whole key is you have something that is consuming that event and then updating a different model. So maybe your database or your website is actually using the user model or the contact model out of a SQL database, but that was constructed from these events, not updated directly.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So another use case that we're looking to use it for, Thomas, if this helps you, and it might help you a little easier with the concept, is the naming's unfortunate, but there's a workflow.
Penis.
No, there's a.
Why'd we even name it that?
There's a workflow in the Screenfield app called Events, and we're applying this event architecture, this event sourcing to events, because once an event is defined, as it's modified, which it can be modified, like the owner of the event can change things about that event, change specific, like the cost of the event or certain variables of the event, but the state of the event at that time is very relevant to reporting. And so, like John said, at the end of the event, you can replay the event and understand, okay, this is what happened. It's all a single event, but these factors happen in the event. These things changed in the event.
You're right. That is incredibly unfortunate naming.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I added to the Trello board just to have the link there. There's a whole PHP library called Proof, P-R-O-O-P-H, that is around CQRS and event sourcing. And I started looking into it, but I haven't actually pulled it into any project yet, but might be very helpful.
Well, and Spatty released Laravel Event Projector, which is an event sourcing thing for Laravel.
Oh, this is a whole repo, Don.
Yeah. There's lots of different libraries within there. Have you heard the term CQRS?
Yeah.
I want to say yes, but I can't tell you what it stands for right now.
From what I understand, you can't have event sourcing without CQRS, but you can have CQRS without event sourcing. CQRS, and I forget what it actually stands for, is basically changing your model. So a lot of our models do read and write from a database, where now you have a model that solely does write, and then other models that only do reads.
That sounds familiar. I've implemented that in the past, actually. So it stands for Command Query Responsibility Segmentation.
Mm-hmm. So you basically pass commands to something, and the command could be, update this data, but you can't read from that same source. So basically, all your writes, which would basically be creating events, would be going into this event sourcing architecture, and then other workers or other jobs would then assemble that into different models, and then you'd be reading from those models. And the nice thing is those models can now be in different areas. You could have some things in a relational database, some things over in a NoSQL solution, some sort of caching layer. It's just amazing.
This actually leads into another concept we talked about today that I had to defend a little bit, but again, the more we're using it, the more I'm embracing it. And again, I said again. Hey.
Oh shit, he's stuck in a loop, John.
The more I'm using it, the more I'm embracing it. But my whole UUID approach, I am just loving this idea because what you said, John, exactly is I can now have multiple data stores and my UUID, my identifiers are traveling now. I'm not, all I have to know is if I ever have to look up a UUID, what source data set that UUID is in. But I don't have to worry about collisions. And we were explaining that to the CFO as well, who was questioning, well, why are we using these UUIDs? And that's what we said. It's like once an event, once a product, once an event, once a product, once a user, once any data is defined that we're associating to UUIDs, that's it. We can now use that UUIDs with anywhere, and we know how to translate it. So he seemed to. It's always fun to speak to non-developers and talk to them about some developing concepts and see that light turn on of, oh yeah, that's really kind of smart. I see why computers are so smart now.
Computers are dumb. We're smart.
Yeah.
By we, I mean program. Specifically PHP programmers, historically.
It's getting better. Speaking of PHP programmers, like that segue, Eric and I had a fantastic interview last night.
Oh, don't give that away. Were you gonna give that away?
See, I love how Eric will talk for 15 minutes, but then when John wants to talk, Eric has to bring it to a screeching halt. You're not allowed.
What do you mean you don't want to talk about this? You don't want? I want people to listen to the interview. Okay. You don't? Why don't you want to share?
Yeah, no, I do. Well,
I want to hear your reasoning.
Well, we're still recording, but okay, yeah, that's so fine. Go ahead, share.
Just trying to make this hard to edit.
No, include all this. It's funny. Eric and I did a fantastic interview with Sammy K. Powers last night.
Sammy K!
Host of PHP Roundtable. And we talked about his article upgrading to PHP 7.2, like keeping your application up to date. He's got a healthy article in the upcoming PHP Architect magazine. And it was so much fun talking to that guy. He is entertaining.
Such a blast. I wish he was coming to Wave. He's going to every other conference this year but Wave, apparently.
Going to Cascadia, which is like a week before ours.
So wait, you're saying that it was the two of you talking to one other person, and it was really fun, as opposed to all of the other things you do in a weekly basis. No, I get you. Gotcha.
We should clarify that, Tom. We were talking to a very fun and interesting person. Does that help?
Gotcha. No, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You're saying this person has a podcast?
It's a podcast.
Interesting.
Thomas, we love you. He can relate
to us because he's a PHP developer and core contributor, I might add. And I'm eating ice on air. Sorry about that.
Again. Well, so, Eric,
I also talked to. We had this great conversation with this other guy. What?
I feel so popular. Everybody's calling my name.
Yeah. This guy with the beard on that's kind of in between us on the screen right here. He was fun to talk to too.
No. Oh my goodness. When are you coming down to San Diego, Thomas?
September 19th.
You're coming on the 19th?
That's when
I'm coming in on the 18th.
Okay.
Noonish. You guys are my ride to the hotel, by the way.
You're not a speaker. I don't care if you make it to the hotel or not.
So that was my first concern, actually. 19 days or 18 days for me to be in San Diego. And
Absolutely approaching way too fast. Can somebody slow down time?
Yeah, can we just reverse time for a little while?
So, Eric,
Thomas?
I know what you're thinking.
Okay, but
With the latest patch,
it was just the two what?
With the latest patch, is there an official Rocket League PHP Ugly Club? And I can tell you, absolutely, there is an official Rocket League PHP Club. The link will be in the description. Any of
I
our
have no
listeners,
idea what you're talking about.
any of our listeners want to join, it is an open invitation.
Anything? What?
Rocket League now available on Mac, Windows, Linux,
The people who
Switch,
refuse to sponsor
Xbox,
Game Night,
and PlayStation.
and I'm pretty sure they beat up kittens.
That's how you make a good game. Little kitten punching.
We were trying to get them to sponsor Wave PHP pretty hardcore.
Yeah,
Since they're right here in our backyard.
I talked to Spencer and lobbied against it.
Bastard. He's gonna let you show me your skills because you keep telling me how good you are.
How would you know? How would you see his skills, John?
If we had them sponsoring Wave PHP, maybe we could get a little love going there.
I could do some training sessions. If we had a game night, I could do some lessons for our listeners.
Yeah, well, kiss those dreams goodbye.
Yeah.
But what is this PHP club you're talking about?
Wait,
the
latest
latest patch for Rocket League introduced this idea of clubs. So there's long been guilds in online gaming, but now they've added an official guild type system to Rocket League.
Guilds.
So we picked up the acronym UGLY, and we are PHP Ugly Official. And
wait a minute, we have a PHP Ugly.
Oh yes.
Can I join this league?
You can. I'll have the information in the description.
How are you going to join, John?
I don't know. I have no clue how to play this game.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
I've tried. I'm no good at it.
We were talking to the client as we were leaving today, and he was so happy with some of the stuff he saw, and had mentioned we had a couple. I had brought along a couple of the developers with me, and he had mentioned to him, "Hey, yeah, this is the sort of thing you can put on your resume." And I look him square in the face. I'm like, why would you say that? They don't need to put anything on their resume. They're working for me.
I think he picked up on
talking.
that.
I'm like, I have everybody in the world. You get when you're running a business and you're trying to win contracts and keep everybody employed, you get these moments where you have a real sense that everybody in the world is working against you. Everybody's trying to make you fail. I kind of had that moment today. I'm like, you're my client. Why are you telling them to put things on their resume?
We want to keep the client happy. We don't want them leaving. We have that concern enough of what do we do if somebody leaves? We don't want to deal with that. So don't try to push people away.
Oh, you mean a client leaving, not an employee?
We're talking about a contractor leaving us. We want to keep the client happy, and we're doing that, but with the contractors we have. And if they are trying to tell one of our contractors, "Hey, put this on your resume, and you can be hired away," we got to fill the void and try and still keep the client happy.
Yeah.
And what was that little about, Mr. Thomas?
We talked a couple.
We offered you a job and you turned us down. Remember that? Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. You didn't turn us down. You used us. Used us like a piece of meat to get what you needed. Then turned us down. That was pleasant. Mm-hmm. Enjoyed that. I'm so happy I'm your friend.
Seems like hyperbole.
Remember that, Thomas?
I do.
Remember that?
Yeah.
You're not the only one. If it makes you feel any better.
It doesn't. Yeah, you know my friend Eric. He's sort of universally abused.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it might be because he's kind of a dick.
That's why. That's why nobody likes me. So, yeah. All right.
Yeah, but you know, at least now you have like that salary differential, so that you know how much it costs you to pay someone to put up with you.
That's right. Yeah, I got to pay for my friends. All my friends I have, I earned because I paid for them.
Are we still calling all of the Diego Dev contractors volunteers if you're paying them to work at the event?
hey, that's it is what it is.
That hasn't been made public knowledge. Not all of them know that's the case.
You made it. You guys made it public last week on the podcast. I heard it. I had to hear it 5 times because Eric's recording was a full 8 minutes shorter than ours. Somehow, every time he spoke, his recording got truncated.
Outside. I just got out of the pool, and my recording is 8 minutes shorter.
Oh, so you have a pool, Mr. Richie Rich?
I have a hole in the ground in my backyard that we fill with water occasionally. Yes.
Okay. First off, that's a grave, a watery grave.
Oh my goodness, this is trailing off into Nowheresville.
Yes. So last week,
PHP talk about.
I've got a small story. Last week we were talking about how incredibly difficult it is to update Laravel Nova. Someone went through the work of creating a project called Laravel Nova Mirror, which pulls the latest version of Nova on a cron schedule and updates a designated repo with Nova so that you can pull it as a repo.
This is open to the public, though.
Yeah,
I mean this. I'm sure this is a violation of some terms and the condition.
I believe you have to enter in your personal credentials to download the latest version of Nova. So it's as a cron job, it's really just logging in for you, downloading the zip file, extracting it, and then putting it on a private repo or a presumably private repo. So if you want to break the terms of service, then that's up to you. But that was up to you with downloading a zip file anyways.
It is an MIT. Well, he has it as an MIT license. Oh, but this piece is MIT, not Nova itself.
Nova is definitely not MIT.
Yeah.
So this resolves one issue, which is staying up to date. It doesn't resolve the issue of pull requests and stuff like that. But if you are using Nova, then I recommend creating yourself a private repo for duplicating it and getting this cron job, because it'll keep you up to date on a daily basis.
Okay, so this isn't the Nova source code here.
No, this is the code for grabbing Nova with your credentials,
gotcha.
unpacking it, and then updating a repository that you're maintaining with the latest version of Nova. So this way you can just have Nova in your composer and do a composer update, and it'll grab the latest version.
Ah, that's good.
So a handy little tool for something that I bitched about at length last week.
So is it creating a pull request for you against your repo to say, hey, you can now upgrade, or is it doing it automatically?
I think it's just saying git commit push to a master branch.
I'll have to look at this. I don't know if we'll use it. So we did have some experience with Nova this week and did do some implementation of it for one of our projects. It's checking the boxes that I was hoping it would check. It's definitely giving the developer who's working on the admin interface some freedom to move forward, to get past a lot of the CRUD work that you normally have to do for this stuff. So I'm pleased with that. Yeah, I mean it's still way off. I mean we have a lot we need to do with it, but I'm happy I paid for it because I feel like that developer who's working on that piece of the project is ahead of the curve now, and he's further along than he's definitely further along than he was when he was building everything from scratch. And he probably spent a solid month on it leading up to Laracon. Because keep in mind, nobody knew what Nova was. Nobody knew it was going to be an admin panel. He spent a solid month on it leading up, and was still pretty far off. I mean, he was making progress. He was making, and we were talking through a lot of the architecture. And now with Nova, a lot of the architecture is decided for you, but implementing it into the existing models that we have is proven pretty simple. He showed me some of the interfaces he made for various pieces, and even things that we have a lot of polymorphic tables, we have a lot of relationships, and even in those scenarios, it was taking that stuff into consideration. So I'm happy. I'm happy I paid for it. I'm happy it gave us the little jump. It's not an out of the box solution. I don't really think it's designed to be an out of the box solution. Maybe it is, but it won't be for us. It won't be an out of the box solution. There's still going to be a lot of work and customization we need to do with it. But it's fine.
So I pulled up the repo as you were talking, and noticed the cute little badge there that says you need at least 7.13 PHP version 7.1.3, and that reminds me of the interview we had with Sammy last night. And I'm sure people listening to our podcast are probably more in the know about PHP than most PHP developers, but 5.6 is coming to an end here in 4 months. Mm-hmm. January 1st, it's end of life. 7.0 is actually in 3 months going end of life.
Mm-hmm.
December 3rd on 7.0, and January 1st for 5.6.
What are you guys on?
It depends on the project. So one of our clients is still 5.6. The Greenfield app is, I'm sure, 7.2 at this point.
7.2, yeah, we're up to 7.2.
It's got to be nice for those maintenance contracts, though.
What do you mean?
Well, you guys, I assume, have maintenance contracts for finished projects, right?
Actually, the couple that I'm thinking of, they've taken it over and wanted to maintain it themselves. So,
mm-hmm.
See, so what you do now is send them anonymous warning emails about how vulnerable 7.0 is, and that if they don't upgrade, you create a shell corporation called Smiego Smev Security, and you just start warning all of your existing customers that their systems are insecure.
We really need to have a show on ethics, business ethics, coding
ethics.
Yeah,
this show can be about that.
We're in such a weird. Well, we're wrapping up the show.
Whoa.
But there's so much to touch on, and developer ethics is a topic that keeps coming up, and I think it's going to have a lot of relevance in the years moving forward. Not so much for web developers. I mean, let's be honest, we're probably considered the bottom of the development barrel, but for AI developers and machine learning developers, there's a lot of ethics that's going to come into play.
But I think there's a lot of ethics in play in web development. I've quit a job for ethical reasons.
I'm not saying there isn't any. I'm saying the impact isn't as significant, probably.
Well, I mean, as weapon developers, sure, but
there's always the ethic dilemma of as contractors, right? There's no reason. There's no motive. There's no real motivator to do a good job. as weird as that sounds, this has always been my issue with the business model around a lot of contractors who get paid by the hour, who get paid, basically for that, because there's no motivation for them to do good jobs. There's no motivation for them to have standards compliant code, because the better their code is, the more maintainable it is, the less of a need there is for them. So why would you do that? Why wouldn't you write code that only you understood? Why wouldn't you write code that have some holes in it that only you know where they are and you can patch them?
Because I'm a good Christian.
Because of ethics as well. But and this is when we go to a new client and we try to explain our business model and why our business model is better than you going out and hiring one developer and paying them per hour. This is the thing I come back to. It's like, you need to not have to worry about that. You don't want the developer to have to worry about that. You just want the developer to make the best code that they can. And our business model kind of puts them in that position.
I've always been what I consider a very ethical developer. I remember like my first job out of college, or while I was still in college, the person that preceded me at this place was one of those people that kept all the secrets to themselves. And I go in there and they were using a esoteric database called Q&A at the time that I happened to know when I was much younger. And I showed them how to write reports. And I just remember the people in the reservations area saying, wait, you're going to show us how to do this? Like the person before us had no desire to help them help themselves. And to me, it was, if I can help you, if I can show you how to do this, it's only making me more valuable, because it's, oh, what else can you do?
Right.
So, good.
And it allows you to focus on the bigger problems, because there's always bigger problems that need to be addressed. And if your day is spent creating reports that you can easily show them how to do, then you can move on to the next challenge or whatever that is.
Another position I had later in a company that was making money left and right. I mean, they were making millions of dollars a month profit, not just revenue. And being very honest, I felt I was like number 2 or 3 in the company as far as my position there with the CEO. And I remember sitting there talking to them and saying, of course you can trust me. You have to trust me, because there's nothing stopping me from putting a little code in here saying, oh, every X transactions goes to this merchant provider instead of your merchant provider.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing to say.
Oh my gosh, that set up red flags. And they immediately, I remember not long after that, all of a sudden they had some other person coming in to audit the code. And it's like, seriously, I tell you I could do this, but I'm not doing it. And it was crazy, because they didn't know how big the code base was then. And this person comes in and they're auditing, and they're telling them how it's over 1 million lines of code and blah, blah, blah.
Well, I'm sure that the words, well, have you ever seen Office Space, have cost corporations millions of dollars. Because I think a lot of people,
fraction a penny. What are you talking about?
Right. A lot of people not in the tech industry have seen that movie and go, oh, that's funny. And a lot of people in the tech industry see that movie and go, oh, I've learned something new. And yeah, sometimes camaraderie is stronger than employment, huh? So no, I've said the same thing before. I didn't quite have it like an auditing team come in, but I've had a boss where he's like, how secure is it? And I said, well, it's as secure as me, and that upset him. But that, I mean, you guys laugh about my doom and gloom scenarios and stuff like that. I write secure code because of that. I write secure code because my constant concern is an evil twin from a different universe version of myself, where it's like, yeah, if they knew the system, where would they start? Where would they attack it? Would it be the thing I'm writing right now? It can't be. I will catch them at every corner. And there have been massive security vulnerabilities that I've brought up to bosses in the past, and they're just like, "Oh, we'll fix that." And I'm like, "No, it's there." So now you
fix it now.
you not just fix it now, but now we need to implement a logging system and track the IP of every administrator that logs in and check the account that they're using. This vulnerability, since it's been here for a year, means that our system is already compromised. So start backwards. And they go, that's too much time. Like, Jesus, all right. Like, that's terrifying to me. That the 3 days of work that it would take to do a full administrative audit system is like just too much work. We've got other stuff. Like, oof.
But from a business owner's perspective, it's hard when it's like, do I implement new features that can make me more money now, or on the off chance that there's something that's happened, pay somebody to find out.
Right.
So you guys interview people, you guys do hiring, firing, etc. Have you ever taken a resume into the trash because the person creeped you out? You felt the vibe from them that they weren't ethically grounded?
Are you kidding me? I made him the CEO.
No, luckily we haven't crossed that level at this point. So far, we've been lucky, and we've only hired a couple of people that we haven't known. Everybody else we've known for years through the community, and that's one of the biggest reasons to be a member of the community.
So the vetting process never made it to the interview. It was always before that. It was always in person, hanging out.
Mm-hmm. And we've ended up having to let people go, but for other reasons, such as they weren't as up to speed as they made it sound through talking to them. They just weren't making the cut at the time, so we, cut our losses at that point.
Yeah, it's weird when it's your money and you're seeing that money go out. You get pretty passionate. Like it's a weird state to be in for me. When John and I start going through the finances, we see how much we're paying people, and then we start to reflect back on the value we get out of individuals. Because that, as horrible as it sounds, end of day, that's what it's about. It's not about how much you like a person. It's not about
doesn't sound horrible. Sounds American.
It's not about their family. It's not about what a good person they are. At the end of the day, it's okay. We paid this individual this much money. We feel like we got this much value out of it, and I hate that. I absolutely hate that it comes down to that. But that's really what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. It's just a. I wish there was a better system, but there isn't. It just isn't.
I worked for a CEO in the past that I admire because he taught me a ton. And one of the things that he always said was, until you are running a company, you'll never understand the difference between an employee who expects to be paid and an employer who needs to make payroll.
Yeah.
Having that stress of making sure you have enough money coming in to pay the people that are doing work.
But there's an interesting cut here. So DHH, the creator of Ruby on Rails, retweeted something from Hacker News where somebody was saying the reason you want a Rails developer, or the reason you don't want Rails developers, is because they're aging. They're starting families. They are becoming more expensive to maintain. What you want as a company is developers of cutting edge new technologies who are young hipsters who don't have families, and you can just cut at any time.
Yeah, I
mean,
saw that.
you had the
It
same
was
problem.
Such a stupid thing to say.
But you had that same issue, and you have it today with like mainframes, or what is it, like any of the older languages where people just aren't learning them today. But
Right,
there's
if you
still
need to support
applications out there that
COBOL.
need maintaining. Yeah,
But to support a
it's-
COBOL system, it's going to cost you a
It's
lot.
not even a matter of legacy. It's not even a matter of legacy. I mean, there's still value in Rails. There's still value in PHP. That's always the thing with PHP. And whenever anybody gives me crap about being a PHP developer, or somebody new comes to me and is questioning whether or not they should look into PHP, my thing is, any shop out there, I don't care who they are, they can talk about they're a Rails shop, they're a no shop. You know, they believe 100% that, you know, that's the best platform. They have PHP. Everybody has PHP because it's
Hell, Psionics has PHP.
Why do you go there, man? I'm trying to have inspirational
I have to
conversations
stagger,
with you.
I have to stagger your lectures.
Yeah.
I have to check you every once in a
Everybody
while.
has PHP, and it's not a matter of it being a legacy. It's not a matter of having that somebody having that knowledge of knowing how to code in PHP. It's because it's still relevant. It's because it's still a good language. That was such a stupid thing for somebody to post, and
People post
so many
things. Was it by the president? Did he post it?
No, the thing you just talked about with the developers, with, you know, why they don't want Rails developers. It's like, you know, you don't really want experienced people who've been in the industry, who understand the problems, who have already addressed a lot of these issues and understand solutions. No, get the young, inexperienced people in here that are just coding new things because it's, you know, bright,
Cheap, dirty.
and shiny.
It's the triangle, man. It's the good, fast, or expensive.
Yeah, I can't encourage any of that. We're running a little late, but I did want to touch on something.
We're not running late at all. We haven't even hit an
that-
hour.
I did want to touch on something that we implemented internally at Diego Dev, and I was always kind of a proponent of it. I didn't particularly care for this workflow, which is the reason why I didn't implement it for years. But we started implementing daily stand-ups in Diego Dev, and it's been completely optional. All the developers have an option of doing a daily stand-up, and we use a Slack bot for it, which she'll just she'll send a notification and say, hey, you know, what did you work on yesterday? What did you accomplish yesterday? What are you working on today? What blockers do you have? And this happens every morning. It's a little different questioning Monday morning. Monday morning, it's what is your goals? What are your goals this week? And, you know, I was never a big fan of this. I didn't really find it beneficial myself when I did it for a short period of time. I would go back and forth on it. It's like I would feel like it should be beneficial, but then I would start to get anxiety around, am I putting enough down? How is this being interpreted? What's the result of me doing this? But I tell you, we implemented in Diego Dev. It's a bot in Slack. People have the option of putting it in or not putting it in. Everybody does it. Everybody seems to feel it's beneficial. I can't even begin to explain to you how beneficial it is for me as somebody who's trying to, because we're working on so many projects now. And so there's so much going on in each project. There's so many balls in the air, things happening, that it's really been challenging to kind of stay on top of everything. And if I didn't have the team that I had that essentially don't need to be managed, I wouldn't be able to do this.
Well, there is that one that needs to be.
Well, yeah, we won't mention that individual's name, but I think they know who they are.
Now, we at SDPHP, we had a Scrum expert present from business.com, and they talked about the stand-up. And one of the important facts for me was that the term stand-up comes from the fact that if you're sitting down for a meeting, you're too comfortable. These meetings are designed to be as short as possible, and that's why they want everyone standing.
Yeah, well, we actually don't do it an in-person thing.
Right, but I'm saying, how do you account for that? Because in that same presentation, somebody said, oh yeah, we have a morning meeting every single morning where we sit down at a big conference table and it takes an hour, so I don't like stand-ups. And the guy was like, no, that's not a stand-up. That's a sit-down meeting. That's a totally different thing. If you're not standing, if there isn't some kind of forced limit on your time, then you're not doing a stand-up. So are you guys doing anything to put a time limit on how much that sucks out of the day?
We don't talk to them.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that you're literally answering 4 questions and it should be quite brief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't speak to them. They put it in Slack. It actually posts to a channel in Slack. Everybody can read everybody else's replies. At least I think that's the case.
Yeah, it's a public channel.
Yeah, so everybody can read everybody else's replies, and that's it. I may reach out to an individual if they mention having a blocker, or if they mention something that I have a question about. But it's not like we all get on the call every morning and say, "Okay, let's go through what you said." No, they type it in Slack and it posts to a room, and I go in there and read everything, and that's it.
So it's sort of an at will contribution system.
Yeah, but it's basically, so it's summarizing. We use a timer application that, as you look at your tickets, you can start your timer right from that, and it automatically fills in ticket number and description. So the things that, like the question, what did you complete yesterday, really can be a copy paste. Go to your timer from yesterday and you could basically put in what you've done. Then you can look at your tickets and say, oh, I'm going to focus on these 1, 2, or 3 major tickets today. And then any blockers, you should know, yeah, I'm waiting on somebody for X, Y, or Z. Mm-hmm. So it really should be a very quick.
I suppose that is what I was asking, is that those are all techniques for making sure that it doesn't turn into a sit down, throw down meeting.
Yeah, it's more of a, as you're filling it out, it's, oh yeah, I did all of these things yesterday, and then what are your goals for today is making you sit down and think about, what do I need to work on today?
What am I focused on?
Yeah, and prioritization of what you're going to work on today. And then any blockers is just putting it out there so people on the team know, I'm waiting on you for something, or I'm having an issue with X. I don't know why I keep using variables here. Just easier.
It'll be forever a mystery.
You're a mystery.
Well, I think the ethics question is interesting. I mean, I've brought up an ethical issue before that California is facing now that got really brushed aside by a certain someone named Eric Van Johnson. I won't name names.
Yes.
Really, to me, one of the big news points this week is that California has eliminated the pay for bail system. It's the first state in the U.S. to eliminate pay for bail. And the ACLU has been backing this kind of action for a long time because bail has an exorbitantly greater impact on the poor and minorities. But the ACLU actually retracted their support for this bill in its final form before it was passed. And the issue at hand was that the determination of a flight risk was being made on potentially racially biased lines. They speculate that
This is like a very heavy topic to be getting in on an hour and 6 minutes into the podcast.
Well, it's an older topic, and I'm just going to brush back on it again. The idea is that these algorithms that determine flight risks are biased because the minority communities are more heavily policed, and these algorithms will just create a self-fulfilling loop of incarceration and release, and then incarceration and release. And when we talk about the ethics of the kind of thing we do, we need to not just talk about if you feel comfortable with this ethically, but also understanding your position in the social hierarchy and the social structures that you live in, and that other people who are influenced by the things that you're working on might not even remotely resemble you. And I've had conversations with minority programmers who told me about things like getting harassed by the police at 8 years old, where you just think to yourself, Jesus Christ, that doesn't actually happen. And they describe a situation where I would never comprehend that was their first interaction with the police. And if you're writing an algorithm that tries to account for how many times you've interacted with the police negatively, and it's affecting whole communities, it might never even occur to you in the shoes that you're in that algorithm is fundamentally flawed.
Yeah, like you said, we've talked about it in the past. It's that whole AI piece of it is hard because the person who built it, their biases, the data that's being put in is going to be reflected because of how we've handled things in the past.
Right. It's fascinating. I sat down with a Vietnam vet a few months ago who lost his leg, and that was a pretty startling experience. He was pretty solidly convinced that I was a Muslim terrorist by the end of it. Eric,
don't know where to go with that.
Eric, you've muted. Eric muted his mic as soon as he rolled his eyes and muted his mic at the same time.
What do you mean? I coughed.
Yeah, he was muting while he coughed. Actually, I've heard a lot of NPR conversations around the law you're talking about. I didn't hear the one about the ACLU drop in support for the bill.
I heard it from NPR as well. That's where I heard it from, which is interesting.
Well, different times. But it was interesting that the whole thing is there are a segment of people that they're going to keep them in as long as they can without bail. I mean, we already have that. And then there's other people that the bail is kind of pointless. They're going to show up for court.
Well, and the fact that if you jump bail and get pulled over or interact with the police in any way whatsoever, then you're going back to court, and then you're not getting out that time. Right. And most of these offenses are drug possession offenses or paraphernalia offenses, where it's like they had a crack pipe and they said that they might have smoked crack 2 days ago. And you just sort of go, well, that's a weird reason to hold somebody for a year in detention.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this change. This is a change where you look at people and you say, well, bail's $1,000, so all you got to do is come up with $100 to get a bondsman. And people are just going, where am I going to get $100? I have literally nothing, so I'm just going to sit here for weeks.
Right.
And
the big thing was that there's specific classes of crime that aren't being that aren't listed. So you know, if you're a menace to society, or pose a risk to people, you're not supposed to be able to get out. But it doesn't go far enough in what those crimes are.
Right, and that was one of the issues the ACLU had, was that they defined a menace to society as any crime where violence was threatened and not necessarily acted on. So angry speech sort of becomes reason to be indefinitely held now, and that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also concerns about the discretion of judges and things like that, and legal systems are complicated, man, but they're becoming more and more part of our wheelhouse. They're becoming more and more analytical, technical, data-driven systems. And that's why ethics is so important, even in just doing PHP development, because you can devise these kinds of systems in any programming language.
Yeah. Well, way to bring us down and end us on a very low note.
That's what I do.
But it is that time to wrap this thing up.
You're not even editing. I'm editing this.
Okay.
Is that what you call what you've been doing? Editing? Just playing it and just publishing whatever comes out.
What I did to your audio stream this week was surgery.
I don't want to hear it. I took a screenshot. You have no idea some of the magic I create when I edit. I make
That's true. I've never listened to anything you've ever edited.
That doesn't surprise me. Where I listen to everything you do, and cry a little bit inside.
You do love the sound of your own voice. All right,
I think that's it.
We're wrapping it.
Everybody can talk at the same time, but I'm the boss. I take charge. We're wrapping it up.
I love you guys.
Oh, we love you too, John.
Until next week.
If you haven't gotten your ticket for Wave PHP yet, your time is running out. You want to do that very soon.
PHP Ugly. Save some money.
Yeah. Also, hit us up on Twitter. We have interactions with crowd favorite Ted Nugent every week or so, and some random people show up in the chat. But I'd love to hear from our listeners on Twitter, because we've got over 350 regular listeners now, and just hit us at PHP Ugly. Tell us how your day is going. I'd love to hear from our listeners.
Listen to Thomas.
I do. I looked at the numbers and I thought, there are people out there who are interested in what we have to say, and I'm not hearing from them.
I've been telling you guys this for years. I go to these conferences all the time, and people walk up and say, "I listen to this show. Thanks for everything you guys are doing."
Before we go, did you guys see that tweet, since you brought it up, from Brian Jackson?
No, I don't look at Twitter.
Oh. So we did get a tweet, and you were mentioned in it.
Oh, you know what? I did see that. Yeah.
We'll include the link in the show notes, but if you go to kinsta.com, they did a whole article on what's new in PHP 7.3.
Look at John got sucked into pimping somebody's blog post.
I did. You can edit it out. That's okay.
Yes. No, it's fine. Yeah. Yes.
I like that our listeners, even though I don't know what they're going to get out of it unless they...
Sammy K claims he listens to the show. He's like, yeah, listen to... Yeah. All right.
Brian, you're welcome.
Of course. That's it.
Brian, you're welcome. And you have such a genuine smile. I love it.
We're done talking.
I'm sorry.
119 is done.
In the bucket.
I'm Johnson.
I'm John Congdon.
I'm Poppy Harlow.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
All right.
Stop recording.
Recording.
Oh my god.
All right. Hopefully that's better for you, Thomas.
All right. Take us off there, and I'm gonna go wake my kid up and make him pee.
What? I'm gonna go pee too.
I wake him up every night at 11 to have him pee so he doesn't pee his bed.